You are welcome to Rite TV Uganda. This is a mental health month, but specifically at Rite TV Uganda, we would like to handle suicide prevention. Suicide prevention, and you might be out there wondering, suicide prevention, why? But we are here, the three of us, Auntie Evas and Reverend Gideon, and myself, Sarah Byamukama, to talk about this, and from a reality point, from an easy point, where you live and where we live. I would like to welcome our guests. Our guest, Evas Atwine, an amazing woman. If I had to talk about Evas, it might take a day. I'll spare you this program. And then Reverend Gideon, who I have met, I have so far heard amazing things about him. They will introduce themselves to you. You will get to know them so that you understand who is speaking to you. And I will, without wasting time, I would like to ask Auntie Evas.
Thank you.
To introduce herself to us.
Thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Evas Atwine. I'm a therapist at the International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. We provide counseling support or mental health support to people, and both old and young, and especially young people. We have a special program for young people. And when we deal with matters of suicide and mental health, it's a noble cause.
Very welcome, Auntie Evas. She's given you a very modest introduction, but you'll get to know her along the way. And Reverend Gideon, would like to know about you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm Gideon Mwesugo Muhima. I serve at All Saints Cathedral, and I am a youth pastor there, so I work with young people, and I am very privileged to serve amongst young people, because first and foremost, they are the future of our country. But also there is a simplicity that comes with working with them. And I am married to one beautiful Linda with one son, 2 months old. Yeah.
Pleased to have you here on the show, Gideon.
Thank you.
And reality check. I'm going to put both our guests on the spot. Auntie Evas, if I asked you to touch your gut and asked you to feel how you feel right now, Auntie Evas, how do you feel right now? The inner you.
Maybe a number of feelings, but I'll bring out a few that come to my mind right now.
Those ones.
I feel, as we discuss suicide and mental health, I feel burdened, because I know that most people, when we talk about mental health, they don't know what this means. They actually think mental health is mental illness, and so they don't give it a lot of attention. So I feel burdened by that, and also to know that there hasn't been so much focus on mental health as much as physical health. So that's number one.
I care about my hair more than my inner self.
So, yeah, we treat malaria, but we don't want to think about depression. So that's number one. But number two, I also feel quite hopeful, because the conversations are beginning to roll out, and we are beginning to talk, and there's a lot of information going out there. So I feel hopeful. And thirdly, I feel happy that we are addressing issues of young people, because as we go along in the conversation, I'm sure we'll talk more about this. So I feel good. I feel good that even the longest journey begins with a step, so we are taking steps to the right direction.
Wow. My God, Evas is such a carer. For her, she's thinking about the rest of us. Carers out there. Reverend Gideon, how do you feel, the gut feeling of Reverend Gideon this morning?
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to ask a man, because we really don't pay attention to our feelings. And so I will answer it this way. I feel very contemplative. There's a lot that's on my mind concerning. So I'm a new father because I'm a new father, there is a lot I'm concerned about concerning the future in which my son is going to be living, and children like him. And the things that I'm doing now are going to shape that future, or not doing, the things I'm doing or not doing. And so it does burden me, it does concern me, it makes me feel a little, sometimes anxious, but at the same time I am hopeful because the things that I have gone through and where I am by the grace of God now, I believe that these are lessons, these are life lessons for that generation that's coming. And hopefully people like my son will be able to look back in history and see that while we existed, we shaped a path for them for a better future.
That was very important to me. The people I have here are real people, very real people. I also have a state of affairs this morning. There is a way I'm feeling. There is a way I am concerned about the environment around me, like I have a patient. And I am glad that I could tap from both of them that they are hopeful. Where does hope come from? We will know in this program that it doesn't only matter how I feel today, but where is the hope? Is there hope for tomorrow? Anything could have bombarded you this morning, and you're listening to us from anywhere, in your office, in your bedroom, in the car. I listen to Rite TV a lot when I'm driving. Now, it's not only how you feel at that time, the hope. I want us to pick up the hope from this program. Auntie Ibas, this matter we want to discuss this morning, suicide, how would you describe it? And is it prevalent? Do you really think it's something that's quite common around us?
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Suicide, how would one describe it? Suicide is one of the things we call death of despair. It has its roots in despair, in lack of hope. And so this is very important, because if we are going to address it, we have to know what has eroded the hope of a person up to a point of thinking they don't need to live anymore. So just like all the other deaths, I could talk about drug abuse, alcoholism. Yeah, so it's one of those. So it's called a death of despair. That's number one. Number two, you've asked about prevalence. Actually, we need to know that suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 15 to 29 globally. 78% of these are from developing countries, right? So it is big time. It's not a small thing. That's why I was telling you that when we are discussing matters of mental health, we need to accord them really, really serious attention.
You're right, Auntie Evans.
Yes. Now, in terms of Uganda, we rank the 68th globally. So we can say we are champions in a way.
In Africa.
In Africa. And well, in terms of statistics, there are several studies that were done, but World Health Organization put Uganda at 10% annual. We're talking 10. For every 100 people, 10 commit suicide. That's scary. That's not small. If you compare this with HIV, which is 6.2, right? But we are paying so much attention to HIV and other medical challenges, then we are paying little attention to matters of mental health. So suicide is a big time thing here. So we really need to look at it very, very seriously. It's a big time issue.
Ivas, I'll come back to you. You've mentioned a very big point. I'm coming back to you, Reverend Gideon. What would you say about suicide and its prevalence?
Yeah, I liked the term death of despair, because for a long time it seems like we were trying to treat suicide and not its cause. It's pretty much like saying we're giving Panadol to deal with brain cancer. It doesn't work. It's a cancer that has seared through us, and when we keep looking at suicide in and of itself and never dealing with the despair, with the hopelessness, there's only so much we can do. Actually, there's nothing we can do if we don't deal with those. And so I think that the statistics do indicate that there is something very deeply wrong with the psyche of our nation, and we have to address that. We have, and you see, I did a study on meaning-making systems. Meaning-making systems are the ones that help us begin to see the value of life. And suicide is an indicator that life has been devalued. And so the three main meaning-making systems are family, school, and the faith or religious or cultural structures. And so when the faith and structures don't give an answer to the despair, when the education system, with all its pressures, does not give an answer to the meaning of life, when families that are broken don't give an answer to the meaning of life, you're going to get very desperate people, especially young people, which is why you have, between the ages of 15 and 20, you're dealing with young people who are dealing with an existential crisis, an identity crisis. And when they don't have answers for these crises, the death rate shoots up. Something dies inside before they end their lives. And I think that those are the areas that we need to pay very close attention to. The appealing to government systems, to structures that don't give meaning, is just giving Panadol to cancer. Yeah.
These guests, are amazing. Amazing. And my prayer is that I'll capture most of the depth they have, at least a bit of sound depth they have for us here on Rite TV. Rite TV Uganda is available on all social media platforms. The catchword is Rite TV Uganda, R as in Rite, R-I-T-E, Rite TV Uganda. Find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and very soon we will be on your screen in your living room. You people are dynamite. I am like, how do I get the best out of you? But I will come to Auntie Ivas and I'll pick up something you mentioned. I've done HIV/AIDS work in this country. If you look at the HIV/AIDS budget, it is huge. And that money is coming down through PNFPs, it's coming down through all these IPs. And I mean, I've traveled, I've made HIV money, to be honest. And I'm like, HIV is threatening us at a rate of 6.2%. And Auntie Ivas, this is what I want you to bring out. Mm-hmm. You said suicide globally, you know, WHO is putting us at 10%. And I'm like, hey, we are using so much money to do something about HIV. Auntie Ivas, I think we've neglected this area. I want you to bring out the gravity of our neglect. Because if it's threatening us at 10% and we are quiet and seated and spending money in different places, and HIV, which is threatening us at 6.2%, is having all that budget. Mm-hmm. I think we have our priorities in the wrong place.
Sure. So let's look at it this way. It's important to pay attention to HIV, right?
It is.
So it's not an either or. So it's important to pay attention to HIV/AIDS, and honestly, we should commit all the resources to that.
Yes.
But then we shouldn't do it at the cost of something, something else.
That one.
And I think the neglect of mental health issues begins at individual level. So it's not necessarily just a government thing. It even begins at individual level. I already mentioned that that people associate mental health with mental illness. There's a lot of stigma. That's why in this part of the world, actually, people don't even access mental health services. They shun therapy. They think it's for those who are about to go mad. They think it's for women. There are all sorts of things about it. And so
Women.
it begins at individual level, the perceptions. But having said that, definitely government and public sector has a big role to play in terms of creating awareness.
Great.
And helping people to understand that actually their mental health is just as important as their physical health. We have been pushing out so much information to the public for them to understand that actually physical health is just a small part of their health. The biggest chunk is mental health or emotional health or invisible health. Because if your spirit is crushed, if you have horrible negative memories, if you have your emotions are upside down, if you have lost willpower, that's where suicide is rooted. So we need to deal with perspective issues. What Gideon was talking about, putting things in perspective, helping people to understand that life needs to be positioned properly and not just run to the clinic when you have a headache. Now, you need to know that actually most individuals are treating mental health related issues as physical health. So instead of seeking therapy, they are running to the clinic to treat ulcers, to treat all these things are coming from the fact that your physical health has caved in because you've been weighed down by issues of life, mental health. So that's number one. So it's both individuals, but also families. Families. I'm very sure we'll get into details on this, but at family level, we don't know how to pay attention to matters of mental health. We don't. So, for instance, how do you spot a depressed child? Who has given information about how to spot a depressed child or a depressed spouse, right? And so we just keep going, and we think people are doing well, and then we've mastered the art of pretense, where I say, "Oh, Gideon, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm
I'm
fine.
doing great.
Now,
I'm doing amazing stuff.
Great.
I'm good, but you're dying.
Yeah.
You see? So we have so many people depressed in families, and no one has an idea how to spot, but also how to help. If a family system cannot support you, and that's foundational to everything. So how are people living? If your family environment is toxic, there's violence, there's all this, and there's so many mental health issues. But who has addressed this? Then of course we go higher level to government, and I'm not competent enough to talk about budget and budget allocations because I don't have that information, and it's not in my nature to talk about things I'm not so sure of. But truth be told, there's very little attention at all levels. So I would leave it at
Auntie Ibas is here to create that awareness together with Reverend Gideon. If you listen very careful to the things she's saying, it starts with us, it starts with me, it starts with you, where we are. The question I asked them at the beginning, I asked them how they were. I'm asking you out there, how are you? And in about 2 minutes, I would like to ask Reverend Gideon. Reverend Gideon, you're by the way, you're complimentary. You're both amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
My God, mini making systems. As you spoke, I said, wow. You're queuing into each other. And family, school, faith. That means we've all been beaten.
Yeah.
We've all been to some school. We are all coming from certain families. And church, we even come to church and pretend.
Yeah.
Reverend Gideon, I know it's also overwhelming for you, but in about 2-3 minutes, try to help the person listening to us out there.
Yeah.
How we've lost it
Yeah.
in
So
the meaning-making systems.
yeah, those 3 areas, they're close to my heart, and because I'm a priest, I have been especially I don't know whether to call it angered or frustrated with the approach of church. I'm not just talking about the Anglican Church, but I'm talking about the people, the body of Christ,
The body of Christ.
and how they have addressed this issue. One of the leading causes is depression, for instance, and we've so depression. So you're going to get many churches that are going to call that a demon or a spirit, and so they cast out those things,
And I go home with my pain.
and you go home with your pain, and it will come back. And then we have formulated theologies around this that has continuously led people into a depression that cannot be drawn. You can't, except for God. They are just going to be stuck there. I believe that suicide starts in the spirit before it is manifested in the physical. And for most people, they have already committed suicide. They have already, so we have a nation that has committed suicide. We're just beginning to see the symptoms now. By the time someone takes their life, the will to live that she was pointing to has already been destroyed. The will to live, because those meaning-making systems have failed them. Now I can't, and the reason I'm emphasizing church is because sometimes it's the last hope. You know, people go there to have someone pray with them. It can be therapeutic. It can be, and unfortunately, we have not been partnering with the professionals, because we are demonizing them too. That's a very secular thing. That's not a secular way of approaching it. We have to cast demons out that don't even exist. So you're going to have someone who is depressed, thinking they are demons that are not letting them go, that even Jesus can't deal with. So when you have people, and those are numerous young people that are being fed garbage at the pulpits. And the reason they are running to those pulpits is because the decadence in their homes is what they are running from. They cannot find meaning at home, so they run to church, because church is claiming that they have the answers. Jesus is the answer, but the Jesus they are presenting cannot deal with this issue. Has demons. You get to schools that have education systems that are competitive, cutthroat. They are give you opportunity to compare yourself with someone who is gifted in something else, and you want to be that person, and be as good as this person. And so you're going to end up with young people who are trying desperately to please systems that are just never going to be pleased. And so you have in school, you have people who are not working as hard as they ought to, who are not studying as well as they ought to, who are not performing as well as they ought to, falling deeper into these depressions and don't know how to describe them because no one has told them. No home has told them you're depressed, and that's not something you can't talk about in some certain homes. There is no church that is actually pointing out that this is an area that you need to go and see someone professional about. And the schools cannot help. They cannot partner with professional counselors to say, you know what, these are areas that need to be addressed. And so when you have that desperation, that despair globally, and particularly in our country, it is another pandemic, and it is a silent pandemic that people are being quiet about, but it is eating our generation, eating it, and more desperately now than ever before.
This is an amazing morning at Rite TV Uganda. Listening to Auntie Evas and listening to Reverend Gideon, Rite TV is here to create awareness just by listening to that short opportunity we have had. Rite TV is saying, hey, suicide is real, hope is real, and we will have our guests in the next episode starting right there. Find us on all social media platforms, Rite TV Uganda, that's the catchword, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We appreciate you, our viewers. Thank you.